Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 6 questions in 9 minutes because leaders know how to be concise. Let's get started with our guest today. Our first question, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Colby Bauer, and I'm from Mesa, Arizona, now in Utah. It's my adopted home. I'm the CEO of Thread Wallets and co-founder alongside my wife, Mackenzie Bauer.
Fantastic. So it's a family affair for you.
Yep, exactly. It's become even more so with we have cousins in the office, we have brother-in-laws, we have all sorts of marriages between people is awesome. It's more of a family than not. So
that's great. Well, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I prefer it that way. It's really tight knit. I love it.
Good. Question number 2, what's the best thing about working with a team?
Oh man, that is a beautiful question. For me, because of my inadequacies, it's seeing things from different perspectives. One of the things that we invite in the office is candor, and you can't work without it. And so if you are, then you're maybe missing some of the perspective you might need to be successful. And for me, hearing it from all sorts of personalities and walks of life, if we're approaching a problem, our CFO is going to look at it differently than our product designer. And so working as a team, you have all these different parts of an engine all working together and towards the same goal. And I think one of the most, I think the thing that I'm most proud of with our team is how respectful we are in receiving that candid feedback to come up with the best solution.
That's some great information, and you're right. The ability to safely share ideas and bring those perspectives is such a big difference in the team dynamic. That's great information. Question number 3, I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to get team members engaged. Tell me your thoughts.
Well, I've been told to not pay somebody to motivate them. I think one of the first steps you can take in getting the right people is just recognizing characteristics about somebody. You don't have to motivate the right people. Can you rephrase the question? Actually, I think maybe had another thought, but yeah, would you mind rephrasing it?
No problem. You're, I think, dead on as far as engagement. What does it really take to help engage people at work? And do you find it a challenge, or do you think it's relatively easy? Just kind of what's your perspective?
Yeah, I think engaging, I was kind of aimed towards motivating at my first
That counts.
response, but engaging, I think of it in a different way. Engagement, one of the actually hurdles we found as we've grown, we're still very small, we're only 22 employees, but the hurdle is being able to engage with the hierarchy, if that makes sense. The org chart gets wider and it gets further down. And so how does the leaders or the executive level engage with the rest of the team and making sure that there aren't cliques, so to speak. And that's my worst fear, is that people are comparing or feeling some sort of divide. And our culture is at Thread is very much family, like I said. And so we do things outside the office on a regular basis. So we're doing every month we have a team activity out of the office. Every Wednesday we do lunch all together. All meetings, we make sure that it's not just executives all the time, right? Where everyone's interacting with everybody, hearing everybody's feedback. I think, to me, that's how you can create connection between each level in the org chart. That's the hardest thing so far. I really think that's the hurdle I'm facing right now. But yeah, I would say that's the engagement. The motivation side, I think I answered that properly, is that you don't really have to motivate the right people. I think it all starts with recognizing the character in somebody and just hiring for that, and not just the resume.
Well, those are some great tips, and it sure seems to me like you've got a really good handle on both of those things.
Well, trying.
So that's impressive information. Good for you. Question number 4, what other piece of advice do you have for leaders of teams?
Be humble is probably the top, I would say, the best characteristic of any leader, anyone that I look up to as a leader. And I've had idols as leaders in the past that, I thought were all that until I met them. And so I think it's really important. Some of my favorite leaders in the Utah community, Jeremy Andrus of Traeger is amazing. I think he embodies humility. in his approach to business, being very collaborative, taking zero credit, but taking all the blame when necessary. Those types of things. Again, back to candor, humility in your conversations with employees as you're problem solving, which is happening on a day-to-day basis, almost hourly basis. You're problem solving, and so hearing somebody out, being a listening ear for them, and not always just talking. But humility in your motives as well. That you're not motivated by selfish things, selfish reasons, and maybe having the best interests of your people in mind. I think that makes the best leaders. That they're willing to sacrifice themselves and their own gains for other people, and that means a lot.
I completely agree. Those are great comments, Colby. Thank you so much for sharing those. And then this next question, you mentioned Jeremy just a second ago, but are there other leaders that have had a positive impact in your life that you'd like to recognize?
Absolutely. There's, I mean, quite a few. Of the list is long in terms of business idols, but I'd say in my own personal life, the one that I'd highlight and he's taught me things to do and things not to do, has been my dad. And I think they're equally as strong, the things to do and the things not to do. But to me, you can learn a lot of lessons, and sometimes even more strongly, you can learn those lessons at a deeper level when it's the things not to do, if that makes sense. It almost, because it hurts, it sticks with you. As an example, my mom was an alcoholic my whole life. And so that taught me early on that I didn't want to drink alcohol. So I haven't taken a sip of alcohol. And so I avoided probably years of pain and, potentially addiction. And so the same goes for leaders. My dad taught me from a very young age to be entrepreneurial in his own way. We went hunting all the time. We went to the dunes, four-wheeling. We went horseback riding. He was at every single soccer game. He encouraged me to start my first business. Those things, those life lessons that happen almost subtly, or you don't really recognize them. That's what forms you and builds your character. So I would pay tribute to my dad first and foremost for what he's taught me, and then the things that I don't want to fall into as well. So absolutely, my dad.
Well, thank you so much for recognizing your dad. I absolutely love it when guests, in response to this question, recognize family members. And sometimes it's the dad, sometimes it's the mom, sometimes it's their spouse or an aunt or uncle. I just love that. So thank you so much for recognizing your dad.
Yeah.
Last question. Tell us about your first job.
My first job, I started my first company out of high school. So I'd say that was my first job. Created my first job. It wasn't super long lasting, but taught me a ton in that short period of time. I was on an airplane with my dad drawing pictures of what I wanted to screen print on t-shirts. And he goes, you should actually do that. You should start selling your stuff to stores and to your friends and things. And I just, it was more of a dream, a vision, but he's like, let's do it. I'll set up the LLC. Let's do it. So I created my first job in high school. I started walking door to door to all these retail stores and selling shirts. I sold thousands of t-shirts in my local community at skate shops. And I learned a ton. I learned how to design. I learned how to sell. I learned how to create a small supply chain, finances. And so, that was my very, very first job. And I've only had one job outside of a job that I've created, which I don't know if that's embarrassing to say or not.
I don't think so. In fact, I was just about to say that of all the guests that I've had, and I've had quite a few, I think you're the first one that created their own first job. Unless you count it, like babysitters or lawn care or things like that, which I do. I count those as entrepreneurial endeavors for sure. But you actually formed a legal entity with it, with your dad's help and whatnot. So that's impressive. Good for you.
Well, I owe a lot to my dad. I wouldn't have been able to do that by myself.
Well, kudos to him as well then. Colby, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. How can people find you?
LinkedIn. I don't do any other social media other than LinkedIn. So you can find me there. You can find our brand at our website, threadwallets.com, or on Instagram, thread_wallets.
Fantastic. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, you can go to teamengagementpodcast.com. Again, that's teamengagementpodcast.com. And you can also find us on our YouTube channel, which we encourage you to subscribe to. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a great day.